I'm Josiah.
And I'm Adam.
We are Salada Gun Shop. Today we'd like to bring up another ballot initiative. The Wildlife and Ecosystem Conservation Commission suggested question on the ballot worded this way. Shall Colorado create a landscape connectivity commission funded by 0.05% sales tax, 5 cents per 100 purchase, to support wildlife habitat protection, voluntary land stewardship, rural education, and local conservation partnerships? The tax is estimated to raise about $150 million per year and would be retained and spent under Colorado Taxpayer Bill of Rights, otherwise known as TABOR.
Man, that almost sounds like we have something there already for that. Isn't it called Colorado Parks and Wildlife and hunting tags?
Mm-hmm.
That does this exact thing, but they just worded it into a new bill?
Yeah. So we already had ballot initiative 52, then 82, which Wildlife and Ecosystem Conservation Commission was introduced in that bill in its whole entirety as a protection act. Now that 52 is off the case, we have 82 still actually in commission being, I believe, received.
The title board.
Title board, right? We have now 98 bringing in a few other things, specifically the money coming from taxpayers.
The big thing you guys have to look at here is the political circus that's really happening, right? They're putting something out, they're testing the waters, they're bringing something behind it,
right,
to see if they can push that ahead or which one people like better.
So Dan Gates did a release on this. I think it's really well put together. I took some notes from that. He said, and correct me if I'm wrong, 82 is still possible.
Yes.
But like you're saying, they could play the shell game. Okay, 82 has more traction, 98 has more traction, or they introduce another one that potentially has a little bit better feedback and traction for the ballot. Right.
Yeah, the big thing that we have to all understand is all of this stuff is backed by huge money.
Yeah.
Huge money.
Mm-hmm.
Unlimited money. So they can play that game, right? Hey, we'll put this one out here if anybody's against it, and then they try to formulate a plan to go against this one.
Yeah.
We'll drop that. We'll eat the cost. Push this one through.
Right. Another thing that this ballot initiative 98 brings into light is they want $5 million from the general fund. That doesn't explicitly say that they are going to have to repay that. That is just startup costs to get things going. So that's going to come out of the general fund with no repayment listed at this current time. That could be used for other projects, other things in the state that are majorly needed.
Mm-hmm.
So the TABOR spending limit that's mentioned is exempt. So this is basically, as voters would approve this in 98, it would be a blank check for them to spend all the money that's collected, not be subject to annual spending limits, no review on an annual basis, and they would basically be able to use that 5% statewide tax any way, every way they possibly would want to.
Yeah, it just kind of gives them a kind of free for all.
Yeah.
Free for all. On something that we have to go back and, if you look at the general thing, yeah, sure, great, sounds good, right? Big thing is, all this stuff's already in place.
Right.
125 years in
Yes.
CPW, the Colorado Parks or Colorado Division of Wildlife has already been in place. Does all this stuff listed, it's more on a consumptive basis, right? So people from out of state buying tags, people in state buying tags, that type of thing, parks passes. Stuff that we've already talked about in the past, right? This is all stuff we talked about. This is all stuff where we have this stuff in place. They want to remove that.
Right.
Why do they want to remove it? It's a power play.
Yeah.
It's a power play. They want to be able to say, no, you can't hunt elk. No, you can't use the land in that fashion.
Right.
No, you can't put your cattle on this land.
The way it's worded in the Keystone Reintroduction or Keystone Species, they have wording in there that was fought strongly as a may consult instead of shall consult. So they already have in here, they are not required to consult any of the experts that have been doing this for multiple years. They are not required, so they may consult. So this is something to keep an eye on. If they change that to shall consult, that might give a little bit of power back to the experts, whether it's CPW, U.S. Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Game. You look at other experts in the field, biologists that we have
Already
had
employed.
We're looking at over 1,100 employees that, with the destruction of CPW, would be looking for another job at that point. That's already being managed well. We're already seeing the species thrive.
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend this whole thought process personally. The way I look at it is they want complete and utter control of everything.
Yeah.
What people do on the land, where people go on the land, how people use the land,
Yeah.
how people use the animals that are on the land, or if people have animals, how those animals in the land are used.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
To me, I just don't think that way. I look at it as we've been doing a pretty dang good job.
And the way, if you take a step back, it's almost like they're saying that the ranchers, those people that are leasing state land, BLM land, are doing it all wrong. We have a system in place that is a checks and balances. That completely is utilized on a state level as well as a federal level for the consumptive use. So whether you're leasing grasslands or have the access to, BLM property via a road for your overlanding, your bike paths, stuff like that, they would have outright control of being able to say, nope, that's blocked off. That is no longer accessible. We have so many things in place currently that are managing the land and the wildlife and the use of those parts and pieces. Why would they want to get rid of that use without wanting a monarchical, dictatorship that says no on everything?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand.
I can't fathom it.
I don't understand it. I don't understand the unaccepting of other people's way of life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think we've talked about it quite a bit. We kind of do our thing. Some other people do their thing. Just leave,
Right.
people want to be left alone, and the land is done pretty well. I don't know. You look at a lot of these like BLM leases, national forest leases. If you go to places that don't have that kind of like rotating stock through there, you can kind of see, just if you've hunted at all or explored at all, you can see that there's areas of that have been, I wouldn't say mismanaged, but not used appropriately,
Right.
or that lack that little bit of, grasses being eaten,
Right.
New growth happening. I think one of the most interesting things is like wildfires. Like when you see that happen, and you see kind of like the new growth, regrowth, animals eating down stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The ranchers, how they when on their leases, how they move animals around, or put animals off in like pretty far off places. Kind
Yeah.
of interesting. And you see in these like far off places, like the grasses where normally probably would be really high or maybe even high fire danger,
Yeah.
are eaten down by cattle, sheep, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
There's only so much the true wildlife can actually do in those spaces. So
and they eat, and then I'm not a biologist, but
yeah.
You can just look at it and you can see that elk and deer eat certain things,
Mhm.
and cattle and sheep eat different things.
Right. So they coexist
Yeah.
in the ecosystem appropriately. And CPW, BLM management, they do the studies to know. And I've talked to Forest Service, like what are the impacts of opening up this space for cyclists, hikers, new trail systems, stuff like that. They're taking all of those things into play
Mhm.
to understand, like, okay, this has to be restricted. This, 40 acres needs, timber mitigation. It needs, fire, prevention. So the other part of like this ecosystem commission, there's a restriction on who can be members.
Yeah.
So no ties to extractive industries. So we've got our mining, our oil and gas, the logging, timber. You could extrapolate agriculture in there depending on the type of agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Quarries doesn't mention anything about solar and wind, and the impact that we've seen firsthand
Yeah.
on what a massive wind farm or a massive solar complex does to the potential for wildlife corridors is much, much greater than a single pivot
It's
out
actually
there
really interesting.
or
I've seen that
oil.
firsthand.
Yeah.
Seen it firsthand. Seen it firsthand from oil and gas, from back in 2008, 2007 to now. There's some land that I know of that's been sold off and put into a solar field that has a massive fence around it. And it was put in a certain area that literally disrupts migration of deer, elk. Um, whereas like oil and gas, what's really interesting is seeing a herd of elk hanging out on a oil pad, or deer walking straight through the oil pad, eating on all the like the regrowth on
Right.
the planted areas that they have.
And those are all regulated places. Like
Yeah.
the roads are upkept. You have,
Yeah.
replanting. You have removal of those, those wells.
Yeah.
You have like very strict regulations on those types of things, and
Which also goes into the economy of the
yes,
things, right?
yeah.
So not only do you have the regulation part, but you have, so when the wells are removed and they reclaim that area, they reclaim it to what the original area was like, quote unquote. I'm going to say quote
Right.
unquote, right? Like they want to reclaim it to how it naturally was.
Right.
So now you got to hire a whole bunch of people, which is paid for by oil and gas, to reclaim that site to its natural habitat. So you got guys on dozers, you got guys on water trucks, you got guys, working hand tools, you got guys planting, you got guys. I mean, you're talking about a pretty sizable crew of people just being employed.
It goes back to the ecosystem involves humans.
Yeah.
And we've got such great things in place to create an ecosystem that is diverse, a conservation that has worked for many, many years, and this powerful commission that they want to create doesn't have a checks and balances. They don't have to consult the experts. They are going to be, based off of this, mostly appointed experts, but not really.
Yeah, it's pulling the experts from a totally different viewpoint, right? Like a non-consumptive viewpoint, of, hey, we're going to pull experts from XYZ anti-hunting place.
Right.
We're going to pull experts from XYZ known person that doesn't like hunting, fishing, outdoor recreation, like from local colleges or in-state colleges.
Activist groups are mentioned
Yeah.
that they're going to be appointed from,
Yeah.
or be, how do they word it? Would be appointed, but then approved by the governor through those commissions.
I think it's the 10-yard line, honestly.
Yeah.
I think this is like full on red zone. This is the last push for 26. He knows he's going.
Yeah.
This is the last. Let's make this happen.
There's some amazing incentives inside this for landowners.
Yeah, well,
that have strings. So looking at it, you would have to voluntarily enroll at least 30% of your land for a wildlife corridor to get a tax credit or grants or basically incentives as a landowner.
Right.
But with that, they could restrict any type of development that you would want to do, any type of fencing, if it restricts the corridor.
They can restrict anything.
Yeah.
The way it reads is what you're essentially doing is you're putting your land in this program that where before it was a communication, a working relationship with the landowner. Like there's working relationships that currently happen between CPW, BLM, forest with landowners. Right. Like, hey, like, what do you guys think about this? Like, we should probably work on, maybe doing a little forest work here so you can do this, and or hey, you're fencing, maybe we could touch this up so we don't have any issues with whatever it may be. Now,
it's a one-way.
It's a one-way street.
Yeah.
Like, if this does go through, I don't know how you describe it other than like it's a look what's in my right hand, but my left hand is all balled up, ready to smack you.
Well, we could even look at how the reintroduction of the wolves was supposed to help take care of any type of depredation, any type of animal loss, and the amount of money that isn't being used to make those ranchers whole, those farmers whole. And we're looking now at another power grab for land that could cause civil fines up to $500,000
per offense. Per offense.
That they are going to be able to basically move the goalpost on you and say, we've changed what we think this corridor is, how you're managing the land, how you're using the land. You have basically created an offense, and now you're being fined.
And the piece of that, of like what they decide, like keystone species, what they're considering endangered, like where are they pulling that information from? What are they saying is the keystone species? What are they?
They may consult the experts,
but the experts could be prairie dogs are a keystone species now, and call it what it is. Like, there's some places that are overrun with prairie dogs and need to be managed appropriately for the health of a lot of things.
Right.
But you look at it and like you said, I look at it as like they are going to move the goalpost on people.
Yeah.
If they have a project in mind that they want to push through, they're going to do it.
Yeah. I didn't see anything in the writing or interpretation for eminent domain, because this commission would not have the capability of eminent domain. But what it does do is, if I recall how I wrote this down, it could result in regulatory taking. Because
Just reworded.
exactly. So not an eminent domain situation, but now I've been fined $500,000 per offense. I can't pay my taxes. Now I have this development group or whoever else swoop in, and now the commission says, oh, well, this group, wants to buy it. They opt in, or they decide, oh, we've changed our mind. We've moved the goalpost. We did find that individual. He's lost his land. Now this new group owns the land. We're going to allow them to develop the way they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that shifting of pieces that I see the potential for in this. And I think Dan kind of alluded to it as well, that if you're unable to pay these fines, there's no way you can, manage the land. There's no way that you can, keep that land that is private and or was being leased.
Seems like a full-on attack on that aspect. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. Maybe they,
But why are we changing everything? Why?
I think we know. I think we know, right? The writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
We know what they like. We know what they don't like. They don't like hunting.
Right.
They don't like the consumptive use model. I think we know why. They don't like hunting. They don't like the consumptive use model. And for those of you that don't know what the consumptive use model is, it's essentially what the North American model of wildlife management is. So I buy a tag. I give the state money to have an opportunity to take an animal off the land. That's essentially what the consumptive use model
Not
is.
a guarantee, but an opportunity, right?
An opportunity.
Right.
It's using the land for not benefit, but it's using its resources and taking from that land something.
Right.
Whether that be, it could be anything as simple as like, an ATV permit. Right? Like to ride on the trails.
An alpaca farm.
Like you gave the state money to ride your ATV or UTV or whatever on the trails that they maintain.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of I don't want to call it a quid pro quo, but it's essentially you're giving money so that you can use it.
Right. And a lot of those funds are then put into parks. Obviously, there's park passes as well.
Yep.
So you can consider that somewhat consumptive as well.
It's consumptive, absolutely.
Right? So again, you buy your license plate tag, you get your park pass. That is, you're opting in for consumptive use. So, which is a great thing, because that's what the
whatever
land
other
is for.
state does, what we all do, what we've always done, how the animals have always been managed. Always been managed post market era hunting. Right. So we found that out in history that during the market era, we can't do that. Yeah. That's why the buffalo essentially disappeared. Right. Well, almost all the animals, if you look at it,
Numbers are growing now.
From that era to then switching into the North American model, now everything is getting back to or is more than at proper levels. So the other part that you want to know is that who is this going to affect? I think initially this affects your ranchers, like your cattle farmers, right? Everybody loves a steak. Most people. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people do. The cost of beef in Colorado supplies a lot of beef.
Yeah,
supplies a lot of beef. more than you would expect to other states,
Mm-hmm.
other parts of the country. So what happens then? So then you have, we'll say, an attack on their land. So now they have less land to be able to move their cattle. So now they have to decrease the amount of cattle they have, which decreases profit margins, which is already pretty tight.
Yep.
So then what happens? Then you fall into they're going to fine you because you let 3 cows out on some
Right.
place that you didn't know, and now they're going to take away your land. So well, we had this is totally off the top of we had 2,500 cattle producers,
Right.
and then you have 2,000,
Yeah.
and then you have 1,500,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
So truly, the people that are at stake, we're looking at the Cattlemen's Association, we have ag producers, we have oil and gas. All of these people are not being added to the commission that are going to be affected
directly,
mm-hmm. which then turns into us as consumers, the price of beef, the availability of beef, the availability of or any ranch animal, whether it's lamb, pork. You're looking at now if I'm managing a ranch that has horses, cattle, chickens, eggs. Now all those things that we take for granted because of the ability to use our land or use our land, the way we want to,
their land,
right? It's completely removed.
I think a big thing too that we kind of get sucked into is we do talk about like the cattle industry because they're a big, large animal,
Yeah.
like everybody can kind of relate,
Mhm.
right? Da 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 da. Just south of us here, huge potato farmers.
Yeah,
This will affect them,
that's another one. Yeah,
you know? You have huge potato farmers.
they develop a corridor that needs to be unfarmed. We lose that as
Right.
well.
And then they're deciding on what you can and can't use. And
Right. Another tertiary effect of ballot initiative 98 is the fact that with the defunding of CPW, we have SB 003 that will be going into effect next August. So CPW will be in charge of managing, developing, and then administering permits for those that want to purchase certain firearms.
mm-hmm.
Now, if CPW becomes defunded or abolished, or however they figure out a way to destroy them by utilizing that, now we have something that's already in place, that a firearm that was legal to purchase a year ago, 2 months ago, 6 months in the future now can't be purchased because there's no regulatory agency administering the permits, the regulation, the advisement going forward. So we have so many things at play. We have state land board appointments by commission. We have these people, these dominoes in effect, that have already been placed that will help these ballot initiative 82 or 98, whichever one goes through or gets both of them perhaps maybe on the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
that we have keystone people in place that are already fighting a battle against us. 127,
Mm-hmm.
we've got other things that went through. The inability for us to stand up and vote is really going to show in 26. So we've got to be educated. We have to know what the effects are going to be.
You got to set the chessboard, right?
Yeah, they're truly setting the chessboard, and they've done it.
Yeah,
10 plus years.
they've been working on it a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, they're truly working on it. They have put the people in place to make this stuff go through as smoothly as possible for them. So you have a state land board person who will be in place. You have the commission in CPW kind of set in place.
Yeah.
You have 003 off in the the distance.
Yep.
With the commission CPW, and then you have the 003, right? So move that, move this pawn.
Right.
You know, you're setting up the chessboard to really, for lack of a better term, we're talking about no kings here.
Right.
This looks very much like it is going to be. This is how things are going to be done in this state,
right.
And we're going to tell you what to do.
Going back to that one-way street, that one-way communication, this is how wildlife is managed. These are the keystone species. Your land will be used this way. Our rights in the state of Colorado, whether you're riding a bike, bird watching, running a ranch, enjoying the outdoors in any capacity, whether you like to shoot, whether you like to bird hunt, whether you like to hunt, period.
You won't be able to shoot on any.
You won't be able to do any, like so the ability for us to go out and shoot on our local range would be absolutely the first thing, I believe, plucked away from us.
Yeah.
Which we take for granted right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got to be on top of these initiatives. We've got to be on top of the blatant attack on our rights in the state of Colorado. We have to vote. We have to be aware of these things. We are going to continue to bring these to your attention. We want you to be aware. We want you to have as much information.
Stay tuned in. Stay tuned in.
Yeah.
This is not the time to turn away because we feel like we're in a comfort spot
right.
in the nation. We need to stay apprised at what is going on.
Yeah.
You can do that here. You can do that at Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, Dan Gates's podcast, Through the Gates. You can do it on many other avenues.
Right.
But please stay tuned in, watch and listen. There are a lot of pieces being played here that will affect us in total.
Yeah.
Over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. Big dominoes falling in 26 at this point with what they put in place. We've got to get out. We've got to vote. We've got to be apprised of these ballot initiatives, of the way that they're trying to take our rights away in the state of Colorado. So please stay tuned. We'll see you soon.
And remember, know who your senator is. Know who your House representative is. Get in contact with them. So everybody, this stuff is easy to gloss over. This stuff is easy to just skip through. Please stay tuned. This is likely going to affect every single one of you, whether you like to ride a bike, whether you like to hunt. This is everybody. Thanks for watching.